In this video, I'll show you October 23rd, 2020, Sergeant Jeremy Bird of the Port Orange Police Department in Florida received a text message from Officer Andre Fleming informing him that City Councilman Drew Bastian had called him to report seeing an individual dressed in, quote, UN, quote, all black trying to film over a wall located on the perimeter of the Port Orange Police Department. According to his police report, Sergeant Bird sent Officer Preston, Officer Jovanovic, and Acting Sergeant Kurtz to attempt to locate the, quote, UN, quote, subject, who was later identified as James Newmeyer, a local citizen who had visited the police department to attempt to file an officer complaint. Somehow, the responding officers came to believe that Mr. Newmeyer was reported as trying to climb over the wall, and the interaction that followed was captured on body camera. Somebody's supposedly climbing our wall with a mask on over here.
Andre called it in. Yeah, over here. Somewhere on this wall on Clyde, he said. Andre called it in. See anything?
The guy walking on the sidewalk, he has a mask on, he's just texting.
In black?
Black pants, black shirt, Caucasian.
Okay. I think that's the guy he was saying was trying to climb our wall there, because Andre saw it, so 12 to 15. Go ahead. Hey, I guess he's walking southbound on Clyde, next to the PD now, dressed all in black. Supposedly he's walking down this way.
He's walking north.
So.
Charlie 90, Patrol, take the McDonald's call.
Hello. Hello. Hey, were you trying to come over our wall here?
Hell no. What, I look stupid?
No? We'll get you for 1 second, because we had a call of a guy dressed in black that was climbing up on one of our walls there.
Hell no. Ain't you guys got cameras?
Uh-huh. Do you have an ID card with you? I'll call Fleming. Hey, Sarge. Can you call Fleming? Who messaged? Where did Fleming who did he message? What's that? Was that you?
Yeah.
Well, we're out with the guy dressed in black that's running right along here, so.
He said he had a citizen call.
Oh, so he didn't see it?
No, he didn't.
Jesus Christ.
All right, yeah, I think I'm going to have to go to court next week.
All right. Well, great. I thought he saw.
Well, he's doing it like that.
Yeah. All right.
He's refusing to give his name or any information.
Hey, I don't like cops. I don't talk to cops. I don't deal with cops. I was minding my business, looking at my phone, walking down the sidewalk, and I was stopped.
Freely, he stated to me that he was inside the lobby trying to make an officer complaint.
Okay.
Figured out it was closed, so he left the the lobby, and came onto the road. The sidewalk, and came this way. So he was trying to make a complaint, but
Okay. Well,
I can help you with that.
no, you can't.
Yeah, I can.
No, you can't. I'll be here Monday through Friday during business hours to talk to a supervisor.
I am the supervisor.
I don't care.
Well, if you want to make an officer complaint, I'm the guy to talk
Put
to.
it in writing. You ain't gonna do nothing. You protect your
Sir,
blue
he's a
line
sergeant.
brothers. I don't care. You're his blue line brothers. He ain't gonna do.
Say what?
I said you protect your blue line brothers. You ain't gonna do.
Based on what?
Based on police. That's what's based on.
You don't know me.
Based on I don't need to know you. You're a blue line. That's all you are to me.
Okay.
You don't give a damn about nobody but your other blue line people.
So we're trying to. All right.
You ain't trying to help me do. Right now you're harassing me on the side of the road. Am I being detained or am I free to leave?
You're free to go.
Thank you. Oh, y'all.
Keep an eye on him as he. Look up. He's wearing an auto shirt. See if anything happened.
Oh, we have. Oh, this guy?
Yeah, because we don't even have him ID. We don't have any.
He wouldn't give ID.
No. But he's wearing an shirt, so we can probably figure out who he is.
Do you know if he's parked in the front parking lot or anything like that?
I don't know. You want to go? Preston. Go to the. See if he's got a tag on the car in the parking lot.
Charlie 90, Patrol, take the PhD.
Now you're detained for jaywalking, running across Clyde Morris like that.
How else am I going to cross?
That's what crosswalks are for.
There isn't a crosswalk within 150 feet. I know you cross at a
Well, now you're
90-degree
detained.
angle when there's no crosswalks within 150 feet.
You're detained.
You're illegally detaining me.
And now you have to identify yourself.
No, I don't. I want a supervisor.
I am the
I
supervisor.
want your supervisor. I didn't do anything wrong.
Sergeant Bird tells Mr. Newmeyer that he must give identification because he is being detained for jaywalking, and Mr. Newmeyer refuses. The term jaywalking is not used in the Florida statutes, and Section 316.130 of the Florida statutes, which outlines pedestrian traffic regulations, actually allows pedestrians to cross a roadway outside of a crosswalk as long as they use now quoting a route at right angles to the curb or by the shortest route to the opposite curb. There is an exception to this general rule, as the statute does prohibit pedestrians from crossing at any place except a marked crosswalk between adjacent intersections at which traffic signals are in operation. The statute also requires every pedestrian crossing a roadway at any point other than a crosswalk to yield the right-of-way to all vehicles upon the roadway. A review of the Google Map St. View confirms that Mr. Newmeyer did not cross the street between adjacent intersections at which traffic lights were in operation. So, in order to lawfully detain Mr. Newmeyer on suspicion of jaywalking, Sergeant Bird would need to have reason to believe that Mr. Newmeyer failed to yield the right-of-way to vehicles on the roadway. In his police report, Sergeant Bird stated that he drove out of the police department and was traveling south when he saw Mr. Newmeyer crossing the street. Sergeant Bird wrote, quote, "As I was approaching, I slowed my speed at an estimated distance of 30 to 40 yards as it was dusk, and I could not see him well in an effort not to strike him. However, Sergeant Bird's body camera footage does not capture Mr. Newmeyer crossing the road and shows that Sergeant Bird made several U-turns before stopping Mr. Newmeyer. I cannot tell for certain from the footage whether Sergeant Bird had to slow his vehicle to avoid hitting Mr. Newmeyer, but Sergeant Bird's body camera did not capture any evidence that supports the theory that Mr. Newmeyer failed to yield the right-of-way to vehicles in the road. And as to whether Mr. Newmeyer was required to identify himself, according to Section 901.151 of the Florida statutes, which codifies the called Florida Stop and Frisk Law, quote, whenever any law enforcement officer encounters any person under circumstances which reasonably indicate that such person has committed, is committing, or is about to commit a violation of the criminal laws of this state or the criminal ordinances of any municipality or county, the officer may temporarily detain such person for the purpose of ascertaining the identity of the person temporarily detained and the circumstances surrounding the person's presence abroad, which led the officer to believe that the person had committed, was committing, or was about to commit a criminal offense. Now, although the statute states that officers must have reasonable suspicion that an individual violated a criminal law, and violations of Section 316.130 are considered non-criminal traffic infractions, the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida held in the 2008 case of Copeland v. Bradenton Police Department that an officer was justified under the stop and frisk law in detaining an individual based on an observed violation of Section 316.130 as such, if a court determined that if reasonable suspicion existed for the officers to believe that Mr. Newmeyer failed to yield the right-of-way to passing vehicles, it is likely that it would also conclude that the officers could require him to identify himself.
Jaywalking is a traffic infraction. Jaywalking is a traffic infraction.
I didn't jaywalk.
For which you are lawfully detained.
I didn't jaywalk.
You're
unlawfully detaining me. I did not jaywalk.
I actually saw you myself.
No,
so.
Yes, I understand that.
You
You are allowed to cross the street if there is not an intersection within 150 feet. You're allowed to cross the street at a 90-degree angle. There was no traffic coming. You were the closest traffic, and you were far enough away for me to make it safely. You guys just want to ID me illegally. So go ahead, if that's really what you want to do, take my wallet. Terry v. Ohio says you're not allowed to dig into my pockets without a reason. So if you really want to have a lawsuit filed against you, go ahead. I will sue you.
All right, so if you don't identify yourself,
go ahead, take my wallet. Right there. Take my wallet out of my pocket. Okay. I'm telling you, go ahead, take my wallet out of my pocket. That's illegal. You're breaking my rights right now. You're violating my rights. That's a violation. You're not allowed to go in my pockets and take my wallet without reasonable suspicion.
You just told us to.
No, I
just said that.
You're threatening me with arrest. That's done under duress. You are threatening me with arrest.
That's correct.
Sergeant Byrd claims that the officers took Mr. Neumeyer's identification with his consent, and Mr. Neumeyer argues that he only agreed under threat of arrest. As we have discussed before on ATA, the Supreme Court stated in the 1991 case of Florida versus Bostick that, quote, even when officers have no basis for suspecting a particular individual, they may generally ask to examine the individual's identification as long as the police do not convey a message that compliance with their requests is required. This means that when an officer requests to see an individual's identification and the citizen voluntarily consents to the examination, there is no Fourth Amendment violation, even when the officer does not have the reasonable suspicion to non-consensually detain the citizen. However, as the Supreme Court explained in the 1973 case of Schneckloth versus Bustamante, quote, the Fourth and 14th Amendments require that a consent not be coerced by explicit or implicit means, by implied threat or covert force. For no matter how subtly the coercion was applied, the resulting consent would be no more than a pretext for the unjustified police intrusion against which the Fourth Amendment is directed. Applying this principle, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida noted in the 2022 case of United States versus Chavez that, quote, where the threat of arrest is unjustified and amounts to a misrepresentation by a law enforcement officer, at least one court has determined that providing consent in exchange for avoiding arrest can render the consent involuntary. Now, in this situation, although Mr. Neumeyer did tell the officer that they could take his identification, he only did so after he was threatened with arrest for failure to ID. Therefore, if a court concluded that the officers did not have the reasonable suspicion necessary to detain and identify Mr. Neumeyer, it would likely also find that the threat of arrest was unjustified, making any consent received from Mr. Neumeyer involuntary. No, you're not treating me with respect because you had no right to pull me over.
Don't be messing with me. You just heard somebody called and probably didn't call and said that somebody looked over your wall over there, and now y'all feel violated and you want to come punish somebody. So that's why we're here right now going through this. No, yeah, and you would have never said a damn word.
Go ahead and take the cuffs off. We'll cite him for jaywalking and he can move on.
And I want all your name and badge numbers.
That's fine.
You have no legal right to detain me right now. Okay. You think I don't do this all the time? I know exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
You cannot write me a ticket for jaywalking if I'm over 150 feet away from a crosswalk. You know that. You're only doing this to force my ID. That's the only reason you're doing this, because you're a punk. You want to know my name, so you're going to get it one way or the other, no matter how you have to do it, because you're a tyrant.
I didn't make you run across the road.
You're a tyrant. You know what the laws are. You know I didn't break no laws.
I didn't make you run across the road.
You know I didn't break no laws.
The officers only stopped him because they wanted to force him to identify himself. As we have discussed before here on ATA, the Supreme Court has repeatedly stated that an officer's subjective motivations are irrelevant to the analysis of whether a seizure violates the Fourth Amendment. Instead, courts must determine whether a seizure is, quote-unquote, objectively reasonable under the totality of the circumstances. In this situation, this means that if a court concluded that the officers had objective, reasonable suspicions to believe that Mr. Neumeyer had committed a pedestrian violation, it would likely also find that it was constitutionally reasonable to detain and identify him, even if the detention was entirely a pretext for the officers' actual stated goal of learning Mr. Neumeyer's name. On the other hand, because reasonable suspicion is required for a seizure and identification to be constitutional, if a court determined that the officers did not have reasonable suspicion to stop Mr. Neumeyer, it would also likely find that his detention and identification violated the Fourth Amendment.
Ain't nothing wrong with me. I ain't no psych. I'm perfectly, totally sane.
Citation.
I'll see all of you in court for it too, because I ain't do nothing wrong.
That's fine.
I am legally allowed to cross the street if I'm more than 150 feet from an intersection and I cross at a 90-degree angle. That is the law. You have no right.
Not with cars
The
coming.
only reason that you are doing this is so you can force me to give you my name. That's why people don't like me. You're the reason that cops get injured.
Just go ahead and issue it.
Okay. Where did he cross at?
Right at the PV.
Okay. Just not at a 90-degree angle, or what was?
No, there was cars coming. I had to hit the brakes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And there was other cars behind me.
Okay. What are you doing for impeding traffic or jaywalking?
Jaywalking.
Because I know there's two different. Looking it up now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It says every pedestrian crossing a roadway at any point other than a marked crosswalk or within an unmarked crosswalk at any intersection shall yield right of way to all vehicles upon roadway.
Did he say when he was doing the PD?
He wouldn't tell us. He said something about filing a complaint, so I offered to help him with that.
Nobody could see it, but didn't Andre see it?
A citizen called him.
Oh, I thought he was the fault. I thought
No,
you saw it.
no.
Oh, okay.
Who is this guy?
John Niemeyer. I've never seen him.
Do an FI card as well as the site. He's doing the site, but can you do the FI card?
So exactly what am I being detained for?
I already told you.
You want to tell me again?
Jaywalking.
Yeah, jaywalking. I was well over 150 feet from the closest intersection, wasn't I?
You have to yield right away to vehicles on the road.
Right away. There were no cars on the road. You were the closest car and you were 300 yards away from me, so don't even try that.
Okay.
You know damn well this ain't gonna fly. You just wanted to force me to tell you my name. I refused to ID myself down the street, and now you want to force me to tell you my name. Guess what? It don't matter. I'm gonna be out here tomorrow. I'm gonna be out here the day after. I'm gonna be out here the day after. I'm gonna be out here every day.
Okay. I don't got a problem with
I'm
that.
gonna show you tyrants what's up. I didn't do a damn thing wrong, and you know it.
That's not true.
You know full well I didn't do nothing wrong. I was well over 150 feet from the intersection. I crossed at a 90-degree angle and there was no traffic coming. You're a liar.
Says you, but that's not true.
Well, yeah, who's going to believe me over a blue line thug gang member like you? You don't give a damn about the citizens. You're nothing but a money generator. All you do is generate funds for the city and state. You're a revenue generator. That's all you'll ever be. And you're
Good with him?
Yeah.
All right, here you go, sir. All right, 6450.
I don't need anything from you.
I explained something to you. You got 30 days to either pay
I
it or
don't need
contest in
anything
court.
from you. I'm protesting it. I don't need anything from you. All of you. You.
After the encounter, Mr. Neumeyer challenged the pedestrian citation in court, and he reported that a judge found him guilty. However, the court records are not publicly available online for me to confirm the resolution of his case. It is unknown whether Mr. Neumeyer appealed his conviction, filed a complaint, or pursued legal action against Sergeant Byrd and the Port Orange officers. Overall, Sergeant Byrd and the Port Orange officers get a C at best, because although they've maintained calm and professional demeanors throughout the encounter, they either conducted a pretextual stop on Mr. Neumeyer in order to force him to identify himself, or lied about Mr. Neumeyer's conduct in order to justify a Fourth Amendment seizure. While Sergeant Byrd's body camera footage suggests that he did not actually have to slow down to avoid hitting Mr. Neumeyer, the camera did not capture enough of the road to determine definitively whether or not Mr. Neumeyer failed to yield the right-of-way to passing traffic. However, if Sergeant Byrd actually did falsify testimony in order to detain Mr. Neumeyer, well, then he and the officers certainly deserve an F. It is unclear why the officers became so concerned with identifying Mr. Neumeyer for simply filming in the area near the police department, and it raises the possibility that the officer's reaction had something to do with the fact that Mr. Newmeyer was attempting to file an officer complaint. On the whole, this encounter demonstrates the way that authority to conduct pretextual stop. Cops can allow officers to target citizens for reasons other than their stated intentions, such as obtaining an identification. Mr. Newmeyer gets an A for refusing to identify himself when he was not legally obligated to do so, verbally challenging a potentially illegal detention while complying with the officer's orders and fighting the charge against him the right way in court. Throughout the encounter, Mr. Newmeyer demonstrated a solid understanding of the Fourth Amendment and Florida's pedestrian laws. He also argued that he was permitted to cross mid-street when Sergeant Byrd accused him of jaywalking, forcing Sergeant Byrd to change his argument and claim that Mr. Newmeyer failed to yield to vehicular traffic. However, it is important to remember that because courts determine reasonable suspicion on an objective basis, a court could still conclude that Sergeant Byrd had reasonable suspicion to detain Mr. Newmeyer based on evidence of a failure to yield, even if that evidence did not influence his actual reasoning for the initial seizure. I cannot say for certain whether or not the stop was legally justified. Thank you very much for watching the video. Subscribe our channel for next video.